So hello, Amber. How are things?
Hi, Martin. Good. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. Awesome. Um, I'd like to talk to you today about something that we've been talking about outside of here.
Okay.
And
So I might actually be prepared for it?
we've definitely talked about it in the last couple weeks,
Okay.
and that is summer just came to an end.
Ah.
So we completed summer 2025. It was a beautiful summer, but a topic came up while we were talking about the end of summer that had to deal with endings.
Hmm.
And we were talking about how people respond to the end of a project
Hmm.
and how some people are like, celebrate, yay, it's amazing, throw the high five.
Mm-hmm.
And how other people were like, oh, it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were finishing up summer, I was just remembering so many summers in my youth
Mm-hmm.
when summer camp would end and everyone would go home from summer. Now, you knew it had a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Every summer camp did. And yet it was so devastating that last day of summer camp as we all went back to our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to talk a little bit today about projects and
Okay.
how we feel about project endings.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
project mortality, we might even want to call it.
Project Mortality. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of grief that's experienced at the human level at the end of a project. Whether that is project closure or whether that is project ending, which are different. Because a project closure, I would say in this respect, I'm speaking of when we have planned for this to be the end. And that was either the initial plan or it became the plan based on we have now completed what we chartered to do. That I would say and define as project closure. Um, Project ending can happen at any point in a project. I'm thinking of a few projects I was on just around the, winter into spring of 2020. I'm not sure if you recall what happened in the world in the sort of end of winter, mid spring of 2020. But there were a lot of global phenomenons that brought projects to a close, and they were not planned or anticipated, and in a lot of cases there was a lot of grief. And I think, whenever we're talking about a human emotion of grief, we have to think about the fact that grief has a cycle and that grief follows a curve. And the grief curve is highly emotional. And every human experiences that. So I think for me, I look to that sort of Kubler-Ross grief curve, or also known oftentimes in professional settings, we use it as the change curve because it's exactly the same. Because change is experienced as a loss. And as a result, human emotions follows the same trajectory of what are we grieving? We're grieving the loss of. And in a project environment, even when you've planned for it and you know that it's coming to an end and you have delivered the product, service, or result you chartered to do, the closure can bring on grief because it's change. And some people don't respond well in those moments. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How did you feel the project of Martin Works for the Military as that project came to a close? How did you feel, or what were some sort of sustaining elements of your transition from active military service to not?
Great question. And I'm going to answer it in 3 phases.
Okay.
I'm going to answer it in prepping, initial impact,
Mm.
and lasting impact.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I certainly was well aware of Kubler-Ross. I knew what the change was going to be. I
Mm.
planned for my last day.
Mm.
I gave my retirement date a full year before I was going to leave. So it's not like it snuck up on me.
Right.
And I was well studied, having watched others retire before me,
Ah.
what the positives were and what the
Right.
negatives were.
Right.
So in terms of preparation, I celebrated my ending.
Okay.
And on my last day, we did throw a party. Depart with dignity is what they call them in Canada.
Oh,
When you're leaving, I had a depart with dignity. I had many of my closest friends. Now, we actually had a private depart with dignity. I didn't want a big, giant
I
party.
know, because I wasn't invited.
No,
So,
it was pretty small.
It better have been private.
It was pretty small. It was probably no more than 25 people, but it was 25 people without whom I wouldn't have made it to that space.
Right.
And I did take some moment. We have a thing in the military called a challenge coin.
Okay.
And you get these challenge coins for, I gave away every challenge coin I had to someone in the room as a method of saying goodbye.
Interesting.
So I was not only saying goodbye to this piece, but I was saying goodbye to my dear friends and to the importance of that challenge in my life. So very strong ending that day. Lots of high fives, lots of celebration.
So that was the step one.
That's step one. Step two was the first 3 months after. And I was like, oh, okay, I know what to expect. There's going to be a change curve here. I should get ready for all the emotions as they happen. And I've said it to many veterans since, it's going to punch you in the face. And I did not. Well, it's kind of like if you said to your friend, hey, I want you to punch me in the face. You can prepare yourself and be ready. Okay, he's going to punch you in the face. He's going to punch me in the face.
Right.
Then you take the shot and go, that was harder than I thought.
The impact is different. Right.
The impact is far different. And that's what happened. I knew this was going to have, and it's, as you said, loss. For 21 years, I never had to ask myself the question, what's happening today?
Right.
Someone had it planned weeks in advance.
Right.
I never had to ask, who's my team today? Planned, even the short notice things didn't matter. It was all there. In that one day, it's kind of like being in a really loud symphony your whole life. And then you walk into a quiet room.
Wow. Yep.
And suddenly you're like, this room is way too quiet. Even though I knew it was going to be quiet in here.
You didn't know it would be that quiet.
It's way too quiet. So there was a moment of, oh, what is this about? The beauty of that quiet is it really brought me down to the question, who am I when I don't have that?
Yeah, the symphony.
And when somebody asked me relatively that question, I blurted out a sentence that you know oh so well. I blurted out, connect, inspire, align, connect, talent, inspire, action, align principles. Like that came out in a coffee.
Yeah.
And it came out because the quiet room had given me, whether I liked it or not, the space to not have to listen to the symphony and to not have to have the mission in front of me.
Got it.
So now I can move into stage 3, which is, this is a giant celebration.
So we're back.
Huge. We're back to the high fives and it's awesome. And I could love that whole period. But you're absolutely right. I kind of had to go through that to get there. And you know, it's funny, I'd had some really good psychological training before I got to basic training. And I'm like, they're going to break down my personality. They're going to do this. There's going to be these stages. They're specifically going to stress me out. They're going to keep me up hours. And I can remember in the middle of basic training, going to the mirror one day, shaven head, which I'd never had a shaven head, no beard. I'd never had no beard except for the spots where the military made me. And I looked at the person in the mirror and I went, who's that guy? Like, it's working. It's like, whether or not you know that you're being, I don't want to use like torture, but you're going through this pressure.
Yeah, pressure.
You can know this pressure is happening at such a deep level. And you go, yeah, I know it. Cognitively, I understand this. It's still an experience.
Yep.
And the EQ just jumps out at you and punches you in the face and goes, oh no, you're going through this EQ journey.
Yeah. I mean, I think, ironically, projects, very similar. I think for a lot of us as project managers, there's an intensity and there's a pressure in the work of working the project that many of us thrive on. I think it's why many of us are attracted to the industry. And when that comes to an end, whether it's ended because of something that was outside of our control, or whether it's actually at the end where we've done all the work and yay us, there is this grief feeling that you can go through, which is, it's the loss of the pressure that many of us thrive under. And Of course, the challenge too is that I think I want to caution novice professionals in project management to ever measure their success on whether they had a successful project
Mhm.
closure or not. And by that, I mean, if you don't deliver the product, service, or result, if the project has to end before, yes, emotionally, you'll go through a lot of that sort of grief experience, but that does not negate success, because success in a project environment or failure in a project environment, the greatest projects in the world have room for both in suspension, which means that an entire project can come to an end accidentally or through complexity. And that does not mean, even in the ending, we aren't learning, growing, finding nuggets that we take with us for every future project that make us better, sharper, wiser. And the closure and the grieving process of it coming to an end, oftentimes I see, we people want to qualify it as, well, that was a failure, and I'm like, no, 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 my friend, let's be cautious to just blanket statement. Was ultimately the delivery a failure? Perhaps. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't richness. That does not mean that there wasn't a lot that you learned and that forever, I'm in the middle of a project right now. It's a 36-year long project. I've only been a part of it for the last decade, and it is coming to an end. And I happen to be the project manager at this point to bring it to its end. And there's grief. There's grief for me because a 10-year project is now coming to an end. And so I'm going to suffer the loss, and I'm feeling it. I am. It's actually, it's going to still take probably another, 3 to 6 months for it to finally be finished. But I'm the kind of last person standing. And what I am beginning to recognize is just the richness of, this is not a failure. This is a testament. It's a testament to all of the people that had impact throughout all of these 36 years. It's a testament to the overall community and kind of global impact the organization had. The organization coming to its end is not a loss, ultimately. I may grieve it because it changes my expectations of what I'm going to do tomorrow or the next day or the next day. But the loss is not a real loss. It's actually a gain, because not everything should last forever. Projects come to an end, things close, doors are shuttered because of circumstances, and those circumstances are not bad all the time. A lot of the time, it's just timing. It's just the end of that season. And if we think in terms of our careers and our projects as seasons or pockets where we've got a lot of cool things that we're doing, and then when they come to an end, we grieve maybe the loss of, like you were saying, like you knew what to do every day. I think a lot of the grief comes from, well, if the project's over, then I don't know what I'm working on. And for some of us, this means we need new projects. Perhaps it means we're finding new employment, and that can be kind of daunting. But we are not failing if we frame it in, what have I learned? What am I learning? And what do these ends actually showcase? I think great endings can showcase beautiful accomplishments. Even when, some of the projects I was working on came to a halt in 2020, we still took with us the lessons learned up until that point. And of course, I will say probably the greatest lesson learned was we need to, as a risk, factor in global issues that we hadn't thought of before. And so, as much as in the case of 2020, this kind of global change we all had to go through, for those of us who could be open to it, we also learned a lot, to the extent now that we work differently on the other side of that change. And many projects were inspired out of the grief of the loss of the ones that closed, because we had new work we knew we needed to do. Wait a minute, we didn't know we could work this way. What do we know now? We know that we can be innovative and we can be creative. So I think, the project closure, or what was the term that you were using?
Project mortality.
The mortality of a project. This is all still so much about, what can we learn? What can we learn and grow from? It's the growth mindset. It's the infinite mindset in all of these situations that actually can become the most stabilizing force. Not because things are stable or known. But because when we have that mindset of, I'm going to be learning, I'm going to be growing, there will be future things that I'm going to get to do, and I get to take all of this experience with me into it, that mindset can really help us weather the storms and the grief.
I really like that space around finite mindset, infinite mindset,
Mhm.
because mortality speaks specifically to
It
the finite.
certainly does.
Um, and, for those of us who are going to keep living after the project has had its mortality,
Right.
it gives us a space. But here's my question for you around projects. So, again, I spent much of my youth working at summer camps. We knew it was coming to an end. And to know that it's coming to an end, you would plan a campfire.
Okay.
And when you planned the campfire and everybody sat around and sang all the sad songs,
Uh-huh.
we're singing Green Day's Time of My Life and all the leaving on a jet plane. We're
Mhm.
singing those sad, sad songs. So everybody had a catharsis. We had a way to get it out of our system
Mhm.
so we could have our big cry, have our big hug, and leave for home. Is there things people can do, like a campfire, to prepare for the end of a project?
Mhm.
Because, yeah, we're going to keep going on, but this one's coming to an end. How can we celebrate it either by allowing for that emotional release or
Mhm.
for allowing for those high fives?
Yeah, I think for me, there's just one answer, and it's 2 words: lessons learned. Let me state really clearly, lessons learned on a project is not you looking back over the historical documentation of the whole project and being able to read through and kind of read the story of all the work we did. That is not lessons learned. Lessons learned is the refinement of those historical documents. It is the emotional context around the historical documents. It is at the same time as celebrating with the team and high-fiving with the team, it is also, what did we learn? And the learning is not all the good things or all the bad things or all the nothings. It's all of it together. And I think I really appreciate when we socialize lessons learned. So I'll give you an example. It's one thing to do celebratory wrap up party, great, we did it. Here we said we were going to build X and we delivered X. Let's sit around, look at X and be in awe of what we created. Those are important celebrating moments. But also, as we sit all together and we stare at X and we're proud of ourselves for creating X, let's talk about the road to X. And yes, we can look back to the documentation and go, oh, well, this and this and this. But what ultimately were the emotions around those experiences? Do you remember when X looked like X wasn't going to happen? Oh man, do I ever remember that? Those are the rich lessons learned that we want to capture, because the human emotion with the circumstance, this is how we do lessons learned well. And it's retrospective. It's actually like a retrospective analysis of how we did. The other thing is that we're talking about people, teams of people. People have human experiences that are unique to themselves. And those unique human experiences also need to be shared and captured in relation to the project closure or ending, because those things will better inform the next team, because the next team may be made up of similar people or they may be all new people. But capturing those human aspects of, oh, when we did X, I felt Y, it's important to document why. And the person in the room that contributes the why, they need to be celebrated for sharing. They need to be celebrated for being willing to share the vulnerability of, well, this is how it made me feel. I've had a lot of projects where the tensions on the team, nobody wants to talk about them. Even the conflict we had to navigate and resolve. We move on, we get to the end and we're like, we don't even want to think about it. It's really important to think about those things and capture them in a way that actually is measuring future impact. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not sure if you can answer it or not. And I don't really know how this works in the military. But if you were to give one example of something that happens still to this day, even after you've been gone from your position and your role in the military, what would that be? What's sort of the legacy or long-term impact that you believe, or perhaps even have evidence of, that continues to this day because you were there?
The one thing that, and it jumped immediately to mind as you said that in terms of legacy,
Mm-hmm.
is the concept called veteran.
Hmm.
That when I joined the forces,
Mm-hmm.
I was civilian,
Okay.
and you never return to
Mm-hmm.
civilian. There's
Interesting.
no going back.
Right.
You're either active or you're inactive
Okay.
veteran,
Okay.
because, and whether that identity is put on you like a shirt,
Mm-hmm.
it really just is a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I have my veterans card in my wallet
Interesting.
because it is. Uh, I do this a lot when I'm talking with other still serving or non still serving people.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the we of the military,
Mm-hmm.
because you never really leave.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not active.
Interesting. Okay.
And you still, I mean, I have so many people who are still serving, and thank you all who are still serving. We could not be here without you. In this day and age of conversations around a 51st state, I know that you are on the line for sovereignty.
Yeah.
Not a word we use a lot, but veterans
Mm-hmm.
still have a role in sovereignty, and it never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is the one thing you get to hold on to.
Okay. So it's interesting as you say that. I want to just say, so perhaps there is an aspect to veteran at the end of a project,
Mhm.
because the interest holders, the team, the people that worked on that project for that unique time and space, they forever are veterans of that
Mhm.
experience, which means that carrying the lessons that they've learned, it is the legacy. The legacy is, you don't just have the legacy of we did that. It's also because we did that, we all now go forward and do new things, but it's carrying that legacy forward. And it's yeah, I think it's the identifier, because for me, I've failed more at projects than I've succeeded. That doesn't make me an unsuccessful project manager. What it does is it probably makes me, overall, because I'm able to view it that way, a more successful human, because I recognize that it is both the positive and the negative that informs my future behavior. And then if I think about legacy and lessons learned, I'm always hoping and wanting and aspiring to carry those things forward in a wiser way. And I fail at that too, but I'm at least endeavoring to do it.
As you say that, there's a space in my world where I completely touch base with that, and
Okay.
that is the completion of some of the shows I love. Because as you know, I'm a huge Star Trek fan,
Yes, I do
and
know
Star
this.
Trek was a project with a time and a space and a place, and it moved on. But all those veterans
Hmm.
of whichever show you were a part of,
Right.
and whether you were in front of the camera or behind the camera,
Hmm.
you forever get to say, I was part of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there are people who want to learn from your lessons learned
Hmm.
simply from being a part of Star Trek.
Interesting.
And there are still conventions held where we want to pull these people together.
Yes.
Hey, Trekkies out there, I'm with you. Um, because we celebrate that project mortality. Next Generation came to an end.
Yep.
And while we've had other pieces, we celebrate that as a block of something worth celebrating.
Yeah. And I think, isn't that the point? The point is, we are not the sum part of our one or two experiences. We are the sum part total of all of our experiences. Um, and and that's why project closure, project ending, project mortality really isn't about us as individuals. It's about that collective piece. And and there's value there. Always. Always, always, always. There's value.
Perfect. And as I think about that collective, I just think that we all keep going,
Yeah, hopefully.
because it's true. It's true. As long as we are not the thing that had mortality, we're going to outlive
Mm-hmm.
every project we are part of.
Yes.
And so being able to celebrate, that's important.
It is, and I think it's with that healthy perspective at the end during that kind of lessons learned part, that no matter whether it was deemed fail or success, it is successful.
Yeah.
It has had its impact, and we and the people around us forever changed because of whatever the project was that we endeavored to work on.
So, in the words of Star Trek, because of the project, we get to live long and prosper.
There we go. Live long and prosper. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you so much, Amber.